Hello, everyone. Happy first Wednesday in April. It is an absolutely beautiful day where I am. Really windy, but still amazing. Hope it is where you are as well. Maybe I should say it's Wednesday like they used to do on Winnie the Pooh. I don't know if you guys remember that. My kids used to watch that show. Say hi in the chat and let us know where you're hopping on from. For those of you that are new, my name is Dorothy, and I have the amazing privilege of being your host every week. I bring you the most incredible doctors and practitioners that are changing the world so you can change your world. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Karen. Come on in, everyone. I'm so excited about today's guest. Cathy Cooke is a building biologist and holistic nutritionist. She started working as an integrative health coach in 2014, but realized that some of her clients were still suffering. She saw a dramatic improvement in her own health when she limited her EMF exposure, and that led her to becoming a certified building biologist. She's a certified residential mold inspector, building biology environmental consultant. Wow, that's a mouthful. And electromagnetic radiation specialist. And I just want you all to understand how amazing she is. She decided to spend her birthday today with us to teach us how to have more mold-free homes. So please blow up the chat with happy birthday wishes. Happy birthday and welcome to the show, Cathy Cooke.
Thank you. Yeah, what an awesome way to spend my birthday. I mean, talking about the things that we all love to talk about. So happy to be here. Yeah.
I'd sing, but I actually want people to stay on the call, so I'm not going to sing. I'm just going to say happy birthday.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Cool.
that'd be so good. So if you guys want to connect with Cathy later, her website is wholehomeandbodyhealth.com. And from there, you can join her Facebook group and all her other platforms. All right, we've got so many people. This is awesome. Come on in, everyone. Okay, birthday girl. We want to know how to have less mold in our homes because this is so important. Mold is such a big thing. You know, I was
Absolutely.
I can't remember who that was that I saw on Instagram, I think it was, and she described it as like her taking care of her mold problem. You know, mold was the tornado, and then now she has to clean up. And she was talking about her body, right? She wasn't even talking about her house.
Yeah.
But I just thought, that's right. It just is this damaging force for our health,
really
and we've got to
is.
figure out
Yeah.
what to do.
I know. And it's the one thing that I'm always talking about, like it's the one thing that not only can severely impact our body, but everything you own.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can have Lyme disease, we can have parasites, we can whatever, but at least we have a safe place to go live, and we don't also have to move or remediate or sell everything we have or get rid of everything we have and deal with our pets and every other person in our house. Like, it's crazy. So it's a very traumatic thing.
It is,
No
absolutely.
question. Yeah. All right. So you want me to pull up my
Let's go.
my PowerPoint here? Cool.
My son asked me this morning, said, who's on the live? And I said who you were and what you were. And he's like, building biologist? So he's an engineer. So he's like, what is that?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's so the name is, I don't know. It's a little, I don't know that it does adequately, I don't want to do that. It does adequately tell what we do, but it's confusing to a lot of people until you explain it. So
that's right.
So yeah, so we're going to talk about the top 10 ways to prevent mold in your home. And I got to say, like, coming up with my top 10 was tough because there's so many.
Yeah.
So I will, do my best to try to incorporate more as we go, because I think we'll probably have time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I forgot to say, put your questions for Cathy in the Q&A, and we'll probably have, I think we'll have time at the end maybe to get to a few of those.
Okay. I hope so.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So just real quick, I'm just gonna, we already introduced myself, so I'll just talk a little bit about my story and how I got here. Oh, I don't want you to do that. How mold impacts the body, which you all know, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. And then basically just, the top 10 tips, that's where we're going to spend our time. Yeah, we already did an introduction here. Just, quickly of why I got here. Like, I definitely was not a kid that, jumped out of bed in the morning and said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a mold inspector. Like, no, absolutely not. But like most of the practitioners here, most of us have come to this work because we have a health experience of our own, or somebody in our family did. And that's me. And, I had severe insomnia for 25 years. And, when you're not sleeping well, everything else hurts and sucks. And so it was awful. And then for me, it was EMF. I finally made the connection that my cell phone, my Wi-Fi were one of the EMF was one of the biggest exposures. So when I cleaned up that, completely changed my life. And then I realized, oh, okay, I have to know this piece too if I'm going to continue to help my clients as a nutritional health coach. And then when you enroll in the Building Biology Institute, you can also take air quality training, which I did. And I didn't anticipate that people would start calling me for mold, but they did. And so that's what I'm mostly doing now. And I'm happy. I mean, it's a very, very, very difficult job for many, many reasons, not only physically, but you're exposing yourself to mold, and the emotional, mental process that your clients are going through can be very overwhelming as, practitioners, as when you're dealing with somebody with mold. But, somebody's got to do it. So I'm happy to be the person if that's what it takes. So you all know why this topic is important, right? Because it impacts every part of your body. There's no system of the body that mold can't impact. So, and I'm sure you've all seen it. Your client is maybe presenting with anger or what am I saying? Cognitive dysfunction. Maybe they're depressed. Maybe they're anxious. Maybe they're having infertility problems. Maybe they have SIBO or SIFO, or maybe they have a skin rash. Like what? I mean, it could be anything, and it's like can be very difficult to narrow down, but any part of the body. And you guys know all of the symptoms in the presentations that SIRS and mold illness can give us. Okay, so let's really get into this, what you guys want to hear. So it is important to note that the insurance agency recognizes that any given building will have a water event at least once every 25 years. Okay, I know that it's more than that because most of the time people aren't making a claim. So if you live, in the north end of Boise, for example, and your house is 125 years old, you've had at least 4 or 5 water events, big, significant water events. Okay, and were those remediated properly? Probably not, because I know the remediation companies in town, and the large majority of them are not doing it right. They go in and spray their magic chemical and they leave. And then, oh, wow, your client stays sick because, their house was remediated and fixed, so it must not be mold, right? And you go down the rabbit hole a million other ways. And so our houses have water events, unfortunately. So how do we stop it? This is the real key, because as practitioners, it's about prevention, right? If we can fix this issue before it happens, then we don't have to spend, our entire lives trying to figure this out and heal and get rid of everything we own. Okay, so my first tip, monitor your humidity. So, I'm really grateful that I live in the desert, because humidity is not as much of an issue in Idaho as it is in other locations like in Seattle or Portland or, the East Coast. We're very fortunate. So monitoring your humidity, very, very important, so that you can recognize if there is actually a water loss in your house, or if your indoor humidity is just, basically measuring too high so that you don't have a microbial issue in the home. So this is so simple. And, and I listed the tips that are very, very easy for us to do. And, tell your clients to do this too. So get a hygrometer. You can get any of these online. Unfortunately, I prefer to shop local, but unfortunately, this kind of stuff is more difficult to find. But you get a hygrometer online and you just watch the humidity, and you can pull up the humidity of your area online anytime. So you throw in a search engine, what's the humidity in my zip code? And it'll tell you. And then you compare that with what's going on inside your house. And if it's elevated inside your house, that's a problem. So In general, we like the humidity to be under 50%. It's going to depend on your area where you're living, but at 60%, you can start to see microbial growth. So we want to do everything we can to keep the humidity inside our house under 50%, 50, 55% or so. And so monitor that. And, I suggest having them in different areas of the house, because if your humidity, say in the kitchen, is 35%, but it's 60% in a room upstairs, what's happening in that room something's happening in that room upstairs, right? So monitoring your humidity, very easy, inexpensive. We should all be doing this.
So if people live like in Florida where it's so warm and
I know.
humid, like what
Yeah.
do they do?
Well, you want to have a dehumidifier inside the
Mhm.
house, and or run the air conditioner so that the air conditioning can help reduce that humidity as well.
Right.
So yes, it's probably going to tend to be a little bit more elevated inside, but we have to work on bringing that indoor humidity down. And dehumidifiers and air conditioning is the best way to do that. All right. Next, water your plants, not your house. Okay. So what I mean by this is if your water sprinklers or your drip line, your sprinklers mostly, are hitting the side of the house, this is what can happen. So this is an
Mm,
inspection I did here in Boise just a couple weeks ago. Um, and the water was hitting the side of the house, and most of us aren't thinking about it. But over time, you're going to get water infiltration into the building materials and into the wall cavity, and that can impact the interior of your home. So make sure that there's no water hitting any of the building materials when you're, watering your lawn or your plants or whatever. Make sure your drip lines don't have a hole in them. We need a good clearance of um, foundation to the siding. So we don't want the dirt sitting directly against any of our wall finishes, because that moisture will wick up. And if the water hits the side, it will wick up there over time. And I've seen huge issues inside the house because of this.
right.
So, another easy one, just adjust your sprinkler system. Okay, number 3, use water sensors in plumbed areas. This is one of my favorite tips because it is a a literal lifesaver. So you can get, there's many different types of little sensors. And actually, I've got a sheet at the end. I have a little QR code if you guys want to download the guide to this talk, so you can just click some links on
Awesome.
these products. And so several different types of just simple water sensors. All right, you put these under your sinks, you put it behind the fridge, behind the washing machine, the dishwasher, the water heater. So if there is ever a leak there, it alarms you. It's a very loud alarm, and then you immediately know what happened, so you can go clean it up right away. Because if you don't, let me tell you what happens. Oh yeah, so I've got little videos about this stuff on Instagram too. If you want to see me in action, showing you how to use these, that's a
She's
simple thing
got
to do.
great content, you guys. Make sure you follow her.
Um, Actually, it's my next picture that I'm going to talk about this, the water sensor. But it goes with my 4th tip, which is to use drip pans under large appliances. So this is why. So here, this is a refrigerator, behind a refrigerator where I did an inspection a couple months ago, and it looks okay, right? I mean, maybe we don't see anything here. You see this little tiny drip right here.
Mhm.
Um, and if I, blow this up a little, you can see, oh, wait, what's that little sign
Yeah,
there?
that
What's
doesn't look
this little,
great.
yeah. I mean, the homeowner didn't know because this could just be dirt, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but this client was very, very sick. This is a
Mm,
brand new home. She had been very sick for about a year. She's a registered nurse. She couldn't work. And she's like, Kathy, there's no mold here. Like, I've looked all over. And I was like, I don't know about that. And then this is when they this is post cleaning. Actually, they said they were
Oh,
done. They really weren't done. But yeah, this whole subfloor was
oh,
covered in Stachybotrys and Chaetomium and Aspergillus penicillium.
oh my
Um, and so it was there was a tiny little drip here, right here.
God.
And over time, it created this big issue. So if you had had the water sensor here, you would have found that immediately, and this problem would not have happened.
Right.
And it would have saved her a year of her health, her job, her remediation. Like it's such a lifesaver. So the drip pan is the other thing that you can use. And here's
Wow.
another example. This was actually in the home that I was living in, and this was a drip behind the water line in the fridge as well, actually. And it happened for about a week. Our floor bubbled, massive mold on the drywall. If we had had one of these drip pans under the fridge,
Mm.
it wouldn't have happened,
Right.
right? So a combination of the drip pans under the appliances plus the water sensors, I mean, it will save you so much heartache.
Yeah.
So these are really important things to do. Okay, number 5, look in your crawl space and attic. And okay, this is a little bit more involved, but most of us have never been in the crawl space and never been in the attic, and you have no idea what's going on in there.
Yeah.
And let me tell you that there are things going on in there. So here's a crawl space I was in. Actually, one is a crawl space, one is an attic. Um, this is mostly from humidity, and this is a lot of mold from humidity. There wasn't a
Mhm.
water event here, but there was not good ventilation, and moisture was getting trapped under the insulation. So a very significant issue. So, you know, I don't know, every couple months, I like to get up into my attic and down in my crawl space just to look around. And I get that you don't want to do that. And if you don't, hire somebody locally to do this for you. Or, I can teach you how to do it. Like, it's just really important to make sure that we're looking at those hidden spaces that we're otherwise not paying attention to. So it can be kind of a dirty job. Yeah, and I mean, here's a YouTube video I did where this is again a brand new house, and look at all this. Look at all this trash. This is the crawl space. All this trash and debris that they leave down there because they could care less. And if you get any water in here at all, this is all moldy.
Oh,
So
don't.
I know, it's
And
just
fast. It would be moldy fast.
very fast because this is paper, right? This is the
Yeah.
paper off drywall in 2 days, and suddenly you've got a significant mold event in your house. Okay. Number 6, keep caulking and grout sealed and intact. So most people don't realize that you're supposed to, like, if you've got a tile, I'm going to fast forward to, oh, I don't have that picture. Most of us who've got tile in our showers, we're supposed to reseal that every year. I suggest resealing it every 6 months. And it's, by resealing, it's like just a spray that you put on there so that you keep the grout not as just basically intact and not as porous so that water can't get in there.
Mhm.
So very important to do that. Obviously, the caulking around this shower here is failing, and you can see all that mold growing behind it. So once you start to see a little bit of sign like that, and I see it in showers all the time, you see a little dark spot in the caulking, remove it and recaulk.
Yeah.
Right? It's time consuming, but it's not that tough. We can all do that. And that will save you loads of time. So if you've got this little crack around the bathtub, just throw some silicone over it and
Yeah.
you're done. Super easy. So here's an example of what happens when the caulking is not repaired. This was in a closet behind a bathroom, and this
Mm.
was Chaetomium, and the daughter who lived in this bedroom is extremely sick. And so, just these simple little repairs to help save us from this kind of thing. Okay, I'm just gonna check my time. All right, 20 minutes. Okay, exhaust fans, so important. Um, I did a little Instagram post on this just a couple weeks ago, and it was one of my most watched posts because people don't know what an exhaust fan is actually for, especially in the bathroom. So most people, like contractors, call this a fart fan. They think it's there to reduce odors, but that's not the actual intent of these. Because if you've noticed, most laundry rooms will have an exhaust fan. We've got an exhaust fan. I don't know what's happening to my background.
Oh, I don't either. That's
I got
weird.
some fireworks. Cool. Okay.
That's awesome.
They know it's my birthday, I guess. Okay. So, we have an exhaust over our gas um, stove, or at least we should. So these are for humidity. We're supposed to turn them on because we're showering and we're cooking, producing loads of moisture inside our house, and these are going to help humidity get out of the house. So we're supposed to be using our exhaust fans and leaving them on for about 20 minutes post bath or shower. Most people aren't doing this in my experience. So make sure you turn the bathtub on, you turn the shower on, you hit the exhaust fan as well so that you help that humidity go outside the house. And hopefully your exhausts actually leave the house through the roof because sometimes they don't. And that's another reason to look up into your attic.
Mhm.
Yeah, so, and I show you this little tip on this Instagram post. You know that your exhaust fan is working well if you can throw you turn it on and you take like 2 squares of toilet paper, and if it holds it, awesome. If it does not hold it, then there's not enough suction or it needs to be cleaned. So test that because oftentimes your exhaust fan is actually not doing anything. So you need to make sure that that's happening. All right, number 8, dry your shower and tub after use. And I know nobody wants to do this, but it's so important because obviously this is one of the areas most often that I find water damage in an inspection. So if you've got tile, you need to squeegee the walls and you need to squeegee the floors so that it goes down the drain. If you've got fiberglass or something, it's not that big of a deal, but the tile will hold that water. So squeegee it and get it towards the drain. If you're bathing kids and you've got little kids, you need to put towels down around the tub because they're going to splash, it's going to spill over, and it's going to get on the corners of the bathtub where, particle board trim is, and that trim loves to suck that water right up.
Mhm.
So it's really important to keep these areas super dry after bathing. Here's what happens when you don't do that. And this is an example of when the splashing happens over the tub. So a couple of kids bathing in here, splashing, and then eventually, I don't know that this picture is really good, but there's a ripple in here,
Mhm.
and there was a lot of mold under here because the kids were splashing and it was getting under the vinyl.
Yeah.
So if, I mean, the caulking needed to be fixed here, but also if you had a towel, I mean, if you're bathing your kids and you're kneeling, kneel on the towel so that that towel is going to absorb that water as it gets splashed around.
Yeah.
All right, number 9, monitor your water usage. So look at your water bill. And in most services, they will have your current meter reading and your previous meter reading. Pay attention to that because if suddenly this month it was way higher and you're like, our habits didn't change, what happened? This could be indicative of a leak somewhere. And this can really help if you find this early. If you've got a hose bib leaking or a toilet run or something, and you notice that your water usage increases, then that's a sign that you need to, get an inspector or a plumber or somebody over to identify where that leak is happening, and you can, fix it again, hopefully before it becomes too big of an issue. Okay, and number 10, one of the best things you can do, install a sink mat. This is also a house that I was living in, and we had a teeny tiny little drip in the sink, under the kitchen sink. And this is the mold that we pulled out of here, and I was getting migraines from this. for about a year, and I couldn't figure it out until I found this. And once I removed all this, I have not gotten a migraine since, thank God.
Wow.
But if I had had a sink mat like this under there, that problem would not have happened. So, this goes along with the drip pans under the appliances or the water sensors. These are all good. This is amazing because sometimes maybe you have a product spill, or just a little tiny drip over time. And if this sink mat, if the rubber mat catches that, it doesn't go into the building materials and you don't have the problem.
Mhm.
So super easy to do. And then finally, I decided to add a bonus because EMF is important and I can't not do a webinar without talking about it. This is a picture of me on a course where I'm teaching you how to hardwire your internet yourself because it's very easy. If we reduce our EMF exposure, one, we're going to help our body be able to handle this fungal load better. And we're going to protect our house because, there is some research that the EMF will exacerbate mycotoxins. When mold is threatened, it's when the mycotoxins actually are released or created. And so if we reduce our EMF level, there's going to be less of that mycotoxin production, both in our house and in our body. So I know nobody wants to do it, but very important to remediate and lower our EMF for this reason and so many more reasons. I'm talking to you right now. I'm completely hardwired. I don't have any radio frequency happening. I don't have any Wi-Fi, and I'm, still completely connected.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. So just to wrap this up, kills, sprays, bleaches, they don't work. This is an assessment I did where they tried to cover it up and came right back through. There are no antifungals. If anybody wants that guide, you can go download it for free. It just has some links of some of these products that I talked about to make it easy for you. And I didn't mean to, I'll go back to this if anybody wants to you can take a picture of that with your phone. My info, and then that's it. So I'll leave this up for a minute if anybody wants to grab that.
So all those, I won't name any companies, but those sprays and those foggers and all that stuff, that's garbage.
Pretty much. So, okay. It is garbage if you still have a mold problem, right? If you come in and you're like, we're gonna fog it and you're done, that doesn't work because you have to get rid of the mold, right? Just like we
Right.
say in functional medicine, we don't if we step on a nail, we don't take an aspirin to reduce the pain. We have to remove the nail.
Mhm.
So it's the same thing here. If you've got mold, there's mold there, and the only way to solve it is to physically remove it and throw it away outside of the house. However, I will say that if you've done remediation properly and you want to fog afterwards as part of the fine particle cleaning,
Mhm.
that can be helpful, but you need to be very careful, especially, with cell core practitioners. We're dealing with very, very sensitive people, and I have had clients react even to that. Like there's some essential oils that people use. There's a product that uses thyme and lemon. And it's been great for some of my clients, but some of my clients have reacted to it so badly they can't go back in the house. So just be careful with that.
Oh my goodness.
I know it's complicated.
It is complicated. I
Yeah.
wish it was more straightforward.
Believe me, if there was a magic chemical, my job would be so much easier.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't imagine. All right, let's get to some questions. Barbara's asking, saw an ad for an air purifier that says it cleans slash kills mold. Can this be right?
Well, um, sorry, let me get out of my, here, we'll go to this slide. No. Um, okay, first of all, let's address the killing the mold part. We don't want to kill it. Everything that says that we're going to kill mold, no. Because mold, when it's threatened, releases mycotoxins. So if we come in and try to kill it, we're creating more mycotoxins, which is why antifungals don't work. And they're not very effective at killing anyway. But we don't want an air purifier to kill mold. So why are they saying that? Maybe it's using ozone, which we don't love. for air quality issues. If we bring in ozone or other even negative ions or UV lights or all this stuff, what happens is chemistry, right? So we've got blue light, anything that's going to change the chemistry in our environment, it's going to interact with other molecules. And now we've got formaldehyde. Or, actually citrus essential oils, when they interact with ozone, they create formaldehyde. When we're cooking, we've got, particulate from whatever we're cooking that interacts with other chemicals in our environment. And, remember, all things are chemicals. A chemical doesn't mean it's bad. Everything in the air is a chemical. When we have these interactions, we create new chemistry and we can have unwanted side effects. So we don't love that. Now, if it has a HEPA filter, it can capture the particulate matter. It can capture the mold spore. Great. The only air purifiers I recommend have carbon and HEPA, and that's it. I don't like any of the other fancy business because of the chemistry and downstream side effects that are unintended.
Okay. Another question, Barbara is asking, are window ACs bad for mold?
I mean, they can be, just like HVAC systems can be bad for mold, but that doesn't mean 100% that they are. So if it's installed properly, it can be okay. And usually that has to do with the angle and the tilt so that the water's draining properly, the condensation that's happening. So it's not automatically bad. You just have to make sure it's installed properly and you're maintaining it and cleaning it. So just like mini splits, if you have a mini split in your home, I swab these and test these often, and I often do find mold in them. But if you're wiping the dust away inside and you're maintaining it regularly, not a problem. So you just have to make sure that there's adequate maintenance on it and you're cleaning it often.
We live in a very humid / rainy area on the northern CA coast. Our humidity indoors ranges between 50 and 60% most days. We don't have home AC in our area. Are all home dehumidifiers a thing to tie into our HVAC?
You can a whole home dehumidifier. We usually not really, because it's just going to dehumidify the air. Well, there are whole home humidifiers, which we definitely don't like. I have usually used the standalone units. I don't know of a whole home system, but actually that's a great question. And I'm going to need to look into that because you would think that that would make a lot of sense for somebody in your location. But yeah, we typically do the standalone units because it needs to be cleaned regularly. So if you had a whole home system, I just don't think that would work because you got to pull the moisture to the container and capture it. So I don't know how off of the duct work that can happen. But you could look into an energy recovery ventilator, which is it is a whole house system, and an ERV, what we call it, and that has a core in it where you have fresh air coming in from outside, and then it hits the core, and then the core manages the humidity level appropriately, whether it's too high or too low, and then sends it back through, and you maintain that core and clean it regularly. So that could be an option, but otherwise it's mostly the standalone units, and of course you have to make sure that you're cleaning that often to prevent mold in that unit too.
Absolutely. Judy's asking, my realtor taught me that the trim wood on houses needs to be painted on the very bottom so that moisture from snow doesn't wick up the wood. Are there other suggestions that you have for protecting homes?
Yes, I agree with that. I mean, anything you can do to prevent that rising damp or wicking of moisture is great. Paint can be helpful. Typically, we want 6 inches from the siding material to the earth. Most people, well, a lot of people don't have that. So if it's possible for you to maybe do some more grading where you get a higher clearance from the earth, that can be very helpful. Um, Sometimes that's possible when you've got foliage around the area and you can do a little landscaping to give yourself a little bit more clearance. Um, but otherwise, yeah, paint. Sometimes it depends on the structure, if it's stucco or if it's brick, you know. So there's not a general recommendation here, but paint on the wood, yes, I definitely agree with that, and stay on top of it. You know, you might have to repaint every year, every 2 years, and check it regularly. You know, I like for people also to have just a little inexpensive humidity or moisture meter that you can put on the outside on that structure to make sure that water's not wicking up there. Yeah.
Jeff's asking, how do you get rid of black mold in faucets?
In the faucet. So, like, where in the faucet? Like, I'm wondering about exactly where
Jeff, you want
he's.
to put that in the chat?
I mean, I've seen it in sinks. I don't know, like inside the fixture. I mean, if you know, if you've got a non-porous material, like let's say the faucet is some kind of chrome, and there is mold there, soap and water, you know, you just abrasively remove it. You know, borax,
Mhm.
something just, you know, a little elbow grease, a little, you know, an abrasive sponge, cleaning it out, pipe cleaner, hydrogen peroxide. I mean, that's a situation where, you know, the mold doesn't have roots where it's grown into the wood or into a cellulose structure. So on a piece of metal, you just clean it off, assuming it's not like a massive problem.
Right. All right. Jolene's asking for the bathroom after showering. So it sounds like she leaves the fan on. Should the door be left open or closed?
Open. Yep.
Open. Okay.
Even when you're showering, if you can leave the door open, that really helps the humidity leave the space.
Yeah. Can exhaust fan ducts grow mold?
Yeah. Yep. For
Okay.
sure. So they can, and just like the regular duct work, because if you've got dust in there and you've got moisture, you know, I mean, people like to say, oh, it's concrete, it can't grow mold, or oh, it's metal, it can't grow mold, whatever. True, but there's dust on those surfaces, and that's where the mold will grow. So they can, and I do always recommend that people are vacuuming out the vents, because I see lots of dust up in there, and cleaning it out regularly. You know, whether or not there's mold inside that duct is very difficult to know because we can't get to it easily to test it and see it. But yes, it's possible, unfortunately.
Can mold manifest in anxiety and skin rash/sunburn feeling? I'm going to answer that right now. Yes. Uh, would cell core phase 2 start to help remove mold from your
So I mean, yes, you know, you've already addressed the drainage, liver and kidney issue, or opening up elimination pathways and liver and kidney support, right? And then you're going to add in biotoxin binder. So absolutely. I mean, I take biotoxin binder or carboxy or modified citrus pectin every day. I
body?
just vary them because I'm exposing myself every day.
Absolutely.
So far, so good. I think I just sent off my real-time mycotoxin lab because I just want to check once in a while. But yeah, I mean, carboxy and biotoxin binder, you guys know, so powerful
It's
and
so
super
good.
important. Yeah.
Mhm. Kelly's asking, what if you rent and cannot get up into the attic? Additionally, how can you get your landlord to be accountable for overall maintenance or
This is the million-dollar question, and something that gets me really fired up
Mhm.
because I've done inspections for a lot of people in rentals, and I'm in a rental, and thankfully our landlord's amazing. Um, but that is not usually the case. And I have seen landlords be completely negligent and, dare I even say, criminal about their approaches to mold when I find it in rentals. if you're in a situation where the landlord will not cooperate, I would say break that lease as soon as you can and get a new place because, and I don't say that lightly because, especially here in Boise, the rental market is outrageous. It's
Yeah.
insane. It's very, very difficult. I get it, but I would put some steps into place to try and find a new place because if there's mold in your house and the landlord's not cooperating, it's not worth it because they're gonna hire. Let's say they, humor you and they're like, okay, we'll fix it. They're gonna hire some ABC company who's gonna come in and they could potentially make things worse because they don't do proper containment. They spray it with their magic chemical, whatever. They don't do it thoroughly. Of course, that might, they may hire someone that works out, but I've seen it go the opposite direction way too many times. And, I don't have a good answer for that other than that, if the landlord's not willing to help, I would do your best to try an alternate living space because it's not going to go well.
Becca's asking, what is your take on PCO technology? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, PCO technology.
What is
It's
it?
ki- so there's a unit. What does PCO stand for? I can't remember that off the top of my head. I'll remember it in a minute. But it's there's a specific unit in a lot of mold groups, Facebook groups that are selling. I don't want to say the brand name, but it's a specific purifier that helps to eliminate mold spores and purify the air,
Mhm.
basically. And so, I'm kind of on the fence about it because I've seen it, like I've seen a lot of testimonials from people who are using it and after remediation and say that it's really helping with their symptoms and their air is cleaner and et cetera. And I'm all for that. But on the remediation side and on the inspector side, there's a lot of skepticism around the technology. So I've been trying to get answers about this specifically for a while because I'm interested in it too. And so far, I have not been able to really get good data either way. So I'm still on the fence on this one. Um, I love that people are getting good results with it. I just hope it's not a placebo or that we're not creating more of this chemistry on the other side. Um, so I'm hopeful about it, but I'm not ready to fully say yes, it's great.
Becca's asking, what best things to look for when viewing a potential rental?
Hmm. Good question. I was going through this myself right now because our landlord is selling our property, unfortunately. So what I'm looking for when I roll up into a house, um, one, look at the exterior siding. Just make sure you don't see any signs of like water staining or any gapping in siding. When you're inside, always look under the sinks. Always look under the sinks. Look at the edges of the bathtubs and the showers because you'll see a lot of mold growth there. Make sure there's not a hill going into the structure, that it's not a hill or backs up to a hill. Um, and I I would never rent a place without getting into the attic and crawl space myself. I know that that's not necessarily easy. But if they'll allow you even to poke your head up into the attic and just look with the flashlight, you don't have to crawl all over, but just look, stick a flashlight down in the crawl space if you can. Um, but once you're thinking about it, just looking for signs of water, and those signs of water might be bubbling of paint, rust, um, um, like the warping of the siding that I mentioned, water staining, stains of previous water. Just look for those signs, and that can be helpful.
Adriana's asking, what about honey-based candles? Aren't those neutral or helpful?
Um, well, okay, here's another thing where there's a company that sells a lot of like mold candles. They're like citrus um, and essential oils. And what I'll say about that is some people feel like it helps with their symptoms, but again, we're creating more chemistry. We're lighting that candle. We're burning. We're not really supposed to burn essential oils because that kind of changes again, changes the chemistry, changes the efficacy. Now we have particulate matter in the house because even if it's soy or beeswax or whatever, we're still increasing the particulate matter in our home. So from an air quality standpoint, they're not awesome. But I'm not gonna, if somebody's using them and they're loving it, I'm not gonna go crazy and say, you got to get rid of that. Like, if you feel like your symptoms are improving with it, great, but it's not my go-to recommendation because of the downsides of the air quality impact.
Lynn's asking, I live in an area where everything gets moldy so fast. My stroller has it just from being outside, for example. How do I clean something like that?
That's rough. So you can't, unfortunately. I mean, I've got another guide that I just gave. There was a summit last week, and I had a free guide on there. If anybody wants that, send me your email, and I'll send it to you. And it's a document on how to clean your stuff. I'm happy to share that with you. And it basically, we've got porous materials, semi-porous materials, and non-porous. The porous materials, if they have visible mold on them, there's nothing you can do for a stroller unless you can take that thing apart and throw it in the washing machine. Typically, though, if it's got visible mold on it, it's done, unfortunately. You can wash your clothes, you can wash towels and bedding and that kind of stuff, but that porous, it's going to get down in there, it's going to get into the foam of the stroller or whatever is behind there, and you just can't. If it's semi-porous or porous, you might have the opportunity. So maybe you can change the seat out. I don't know, because there's probably metal frame, and maybe you can remove the upholstery and switch it. Otherwise, I just wouldn't even try. You just got to get rid of it, unfortunately.
So those people that have put your email in the chat, you're gonna have to email Cathy directly.
Oh yeah, I'll put my email in the chat.
All right. Lori's asking, can large fish tanks in your home create a mold problem?
Yeah, in a couple of different ways. So this is where a hygrometer would be great. Make sure to buy a hygrometer to make sure that that large fish tank isn't increasing the humidity in your surrounding area.
Mhm.
And then if it ever had a leak, God forbid, I have seen this. I had a client, beautiful, amazing, big home and a gorgeous big fish tank. But when I got under it in the crawl space, there was a leak coming from above. So, when you have a water fixture like that in your home, you have a higher risk of having a leak from the plumbing, and then you can increase humidity. Doesn't mean it will always happen, but you're just going to have to check, right? Get under the crawl space or underneath that area where the tank is and check it for leaks and keep an eye on humidity.
So two questions here back to back. One is, what is the best way to clean the dehumidifier? And the next one was, how do you protect yourself when cleaning mold out of the dehumidifier?
Sure. Okay. So if you clean it regularly, let's say once a week. I mean, I know people that clean it like every other day. I don't have time for that, but let's say you can clean it once a week. Basically, you take apart all the components, and each one's going to be a little bit different. But if you do take apart the components, just throw it in the sink with some soap and water, right?
Mhm.
Soap and water is really all you need to clean mold. You don't need fancy chemicals. If you want to use hydrogen peroxide to disinfect it, great. I love hydrogen peroxide. But just hot, soapy water. And unless you're extremely sensitive, which I know a lot of us are, you could wear a respirator. I've got one of these little half mask, the 3M half mask respirators with the pink discs. That's what I use when I'm on inspections. And those pink discs, if you need to know, it's 2097. That's the number that you're looking for. That's the best respirator for mold. If you want to wear that while you're cleaning it, you can. But if you're cleaning it regularly, that's probably not necessary because it's just this pink mold, which is gross, but it's not Stachybotrys, it's not Chaetomium, it's not Aspergillus penicillium. So typically it's not necessary.
And just a reminder, everyone's throwing their email in the chat. That doesn't work. You guys have to email Cathy directly.
Yeah, I probably won't get your email. Sorry, guys. I'll put it in here again. I mean, Max, I won't get the chat. Um,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, my email's in here, and feel free to hit me up with that.
All right. So Lisa's asking, so
There we
for
go.
a bathroom without an exhaust fan, would opening the window help?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Open the window when you're showering. If possible, keep the door open. I love windows in bathrooms. I mean, it's only from like an aesthetic airflow standpoint, not necessarily awesome for humidity issues sometimes. But if you don't have a fan, absolutely open the window. That's super important.
Let's see. What about dishwasher drains that back washes back into the dishwasher, creating black mold contamination?
Yeah, that can be gross. So those hoses can be changed out once in a while. So if you can see your hose from the dishwasher line or the garbage disposal line and they're all just cruddy and gross, if you're a savvy DIY person, or you just look it up on YouTube on how to replace that hose, you can do that. Just be careful, because when you unscrew that, water is going to go everywhere. So you could have a plumber do it if you want to be safe. But those hoses can be switched out every once in a while. And you can also, let's say at the end of the day, you're going to bed and you want to throw either hydrogen peroxide or an enzymatic drain cleaner down the drain. That will help keep those lines clean. It's a little bit more, you can't really do that with the dishwasher. You can do it with any other sink and garbage disposal. Um, but yeah, otherwise just, clean them out or switch them out every once in a while if it's bothering you.
Amanda's asking, is there a less toxic form of caulking you recommend?
Silicone is fine. Yeah, because there can be, we want to reduce the amount of chemicals we're bringing into our house. I like silicone. It works very well, but essentially most caulkings cure quickly. And I mean, most of my clients tolerate caulkings okay. Of course, there's chemically sensitive people that will be bothered by it. In that case, I've never had anyone have a problem with silicone.
Okay. Someone's asking, how do you handle the actual mold itself under the fridge by wiping it off and spraying a vinegar solution? No.
Well, are you talking about maybe the drip pan under the fridge? I mean,
I don't know. She
depends
doesn't
on
say
what's,
drip pan.
yeah, depends on what's going on here. So if you've got water damage under the fridge and there's mold there, then it probably has to be remediated, because it's probably in the wood or whatever the surface is. But most people, here's another tip I wanted to add, but I didn't. Um, most refrigerators have a condensate pan under the bottom, and those are supposed to be cleaned. And nobody knows that, because water drips in that pan, the pan catches it, but we've got so much dust and crap in our houses, and mold grows in there. So we are
Right.
supposed to move our fridges out, get under there, clean it out. And if you don't know how to do that for your brand, you should look it up and get some. And not all of them are accessible either, but if you can, they're supposed to be cleaned every few months.
Right. So does a lot of that mold that you're talking about, is that because of the tube that goes into the fridge for the cold water and the ice cube trays? Is that what
Right,
that's from? Yeah.
right. The freeze, yes, the ice maker. And another tip, if you don't use your ice, disconnect that, because that's where most of the leaks and water losses happen from a fridge, is the ice maker. So I don't even have mine connected
I was gonna say, I
after,
don't either.
yeah, so don't,
Yeah.
like that's great.
All right. Mold in sink drain line, how to remove. Thank you.
Um, the sink drain, you can remove, if there's a cap on the sink, you can remove it and get a snake down in there.
Mhm.
And again, you can use hydrogen peroxide, you can use borax. Um, there's a little trick with vinegar and or you put the baking soda in and then you put vinegar in. Um, that's all helpful. The snake will help you actually scrub it and abrasively clean it. We just can't get through the whole line, right? So I mean, a very sensitive person might react to that. And so you can clean as much as you can with the snake, borax, whatever, any, baking soda, vinegar, any of these options. It's just we don't always know, is that going to be enough since we can only reach, a couple feet maybe. But sometimes if you continue to clean the drains with the products like the baking soda and the vinegar, over time it can kind of help slough off some of that stuff and make it more tolerable for somebody that's reacting.
Okay. Steph has a good question here. What are your thoughts on the ERMI?
That's a huge topic. We could have a whole discussion on the ERMI just itself. I like them in specific situations. So the thing about the ERMI is, many of you probably know the score means nothing, right? Like they give you, oh, you're in quadrant 4. Oh my God, move out. Like, no, you need a very skilled interpretation looking at the, the two columns, the outdoor molds versus the indoor. And we want to see, what specific mold types we have and what concentrations. So it can be helpful, but it can also be very misleading. So take, for example, if you've got inhibitors, and nobody's talking about this, but it's very important. So there are things that if you pick up in that dust, rust, blood, urine, polyphenols, which come from our essential oils, humic or fulvic minerals, right? Because why? Because these are binders, which makes sense, right? Because
Yeah.
we know humic and fulvic minerals can be binding. And then if we pick any of that up in our sample and send it to the lab, it can artificially make the result look very, very low. And so you might think you're in a clean house, but you're not because you had an inhibitor in your sample. So that's one way it can go wrong. I've also seen elevations and people like tear their house apart and they're like, we can't find anything. Okay, did you do an outside control? Because some of this could be coming in from the outside. So, people who live in the foothills, if I do an indoor sample and an outdoor sample, if the outdoor sample has twice as much Stachybotrys, which, yes, it does live outside, and I see half that inside, I'm not going to tell this person to, gut their house because some of that could be coming from the outside. Of course, you
Right.
need a visual inspection with it, but it's a piece of information that has to be put in the full picture. So there's advantages and disadvantages to it.
Okay. All right, let's go to the giveaway, guys. Our winners of the $175 Cellcore coupon code are Mark Hage, Stephanie Schaus, and Paula Drury. Congratulations to you three. Make sure you put support@cellcore.com into your address book. And just a friendly reminder, if you only got 30 days to use that, if you haven't already done so, make sure you join our Facebook group called the Detox Heroes. The recording of this presentation will be in the guide section once I can post it. Thank you, Cathy. That was fantastic.
Good,
Seriously.
yeah. Love talking about this stuff, as weird as it is, and love connecting with all the amazing Cellcore practitioners and excited for ECO for anyone that's going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. No kidding.
Yeah.
Thank you for all that. And we will have to have you back because I think we just opened up a can of worms here.
Yeah.
There's so
Cool.
many more
Anytime.
things to talk about.
I know it. Awesome.
And have a great rest of your birthday. Also,
Thanks.
that's
Appreciate it.
awesome. And
Yeah.
thank you all for coming today. And we will see you all next week. Bye for now, everybody.